by which you tell your story and a sound comes out of your heart and it liberates other women. I have a story and I tell my story everywhere I go. I'm sorry I don't have time to tell it today, but okay, I'll tell you briefly, very briefly. When I was in class 6, I'll keep looking for clarification. I fell off a motorbike. I was very adventurous and I hurt my knee. I went to the hospital, nothing happened. In Form 5, I had to have surgery on my knee, my left knee. That was my first surgery. In 2007, I was coming from home, going to work. I remember I was discussing with a friend of mine because I was giving him a ride to town. And I was saying, imagine if God and the devil had the same conversation about you that they had about Job. What would they say? You know, those really philosophical, deep conversations. So I dropped him off, parked my car, got out of my car, went to cross the road, and a matatu hit me. And I had surgery on my left knee. In 2011, minding my own business happily on a Friday in the office, I fell and twisted my right knee. I had surgery. In 2012, on a Thursday, very cold morning in March, on the 29th of March, 2013. Okay, she knows best. Mommy knows best. In 2013, so I'm coming down the stairs, 5 o'clock in the morning to leave to go to work. And I get to the bottom of the stairs and I fall, and as I fell, I punched my leg as if to stop myself against the wall, and I shattered both bones in my left leg below the knee. Shattered completely. I had to have surgery. They put in 13 screws and 2 plates. It was ridiculous. I mean, I've never felt that kind of pain. Now let me go back to the last surgery in 2011 when they put me under. Something went wrong, and at some point I woke up. I could hear everything they were saying. I could feel everything they were doing, but I couldn't move. So I couldn't tell them that I was awake. If you watch, there's a movie called Awake. If you've watched it, that's what happened to me. So for about 40 minutes, he was drilling into my knee and doing other things, and I could feel everything, and I couldn't hear. I couldn't say anything. I remember thinking if I could just lift this finger, because there was somebody standing right here, and if I could just open my eyes, but they had taped my eyes shut. So in 2012, when they're telling me now they have to take me for surgery, I'm like, hell no. So my doctor is like, but I have to fix it. You can't just stay like this. So he says, I need to put you under. And I'm like, hell no. There's nothing you're going to do to convince me. And he said, let me call in the anesthetist, and you talk to her. And if you're comfortable, we'll put you under. If not, we'll keep you awake. So they put in the 13 screws and the 2 plates. And then in 2014, I went back for them to remove them. So those are how many surgeries on my legs? Let me just tell you. My mom is telling the story. Yeah, 2012 and 2013, I was right. So it was 2012 when I broke my leg. 2013, they went in to remove them. And then when they were removing them, they couldn't find 2 screws. They just couldn't find them. So eventually, my time is up. Okay. Okay, cool. We have time. So when they're removing them, they can't find 2 screws. So my doctor says, let's do an x-ray. They do an x-ray, and the bone has grown over the screws. And the only way to remove those 2 screws is to break the bone and remove the screws. But he can't make that decision. So he wakes me up and he's like, so should we break the bone? I was like, are you on crack? What are you smoking? Don't break nothing else. Don't touch nothing, just sew me up and take me back home. That's my story. And I understand that I have been anointed to preach the gospel in different lands. And the devil attacked my legs. I understand that and I know that. And because of that, there's a certain voice that I hear that tells me this is where you should speak and this is where you should not. And sometimes when I push ahead of that voice, all the doors shut. And when I sit back, the right one opens. Learn to hear the voice of the Holy Spirit as he speaks to you concerning your life and your assignment. That's part of my story. Just part of my story. I mean, the first time I wore... So when I broke my leg, I went home after 2 weeks, and they told me, come in after 2 weeks. When I went in after 2 weeks, they removed the dressing, they removed the cast, and I had developed, what are they called? Yeah, some sort of an infection. So what happened after that, instead of going in every month, I had to go in every week, and they would remove the dressing, scrape off the skin, clean the wound, wrap it up, I go home. I come back the next week, every single week, for almost 6 months. Every week, weekly. This is why I tell you, my mother, I don't know. I don't know what I would be without her. Because she held my hand, she would take me to the hospital. And this is me, I would take my one shoe, because I couldn't wear a shoe, and put it in my handbag. I'm not carrying my handbag, my mother is. And I go on my crutches or in the wheelchair, and we get to the hospital, and I'm like, today I'm leaving without the crutches, I'm going to walk. And for 6 months, every single week, I had a shoe in my bag. I looked like a crazy person. Every single. And there were nights when I was like, I don't think I'll ever walk again. I really don't know if I'll ever walk again. And on those nights, it's God who spoke to me. It's Him who comforted me. Because nobody else could understand the pain I was going through. They could empathize, they could cry with me, but the one whose bones were broken for me, who was given wounds and was battered and bruised for me, is the one who could understand. And He's the one who ministered to me. And one day we went to the clinic, and I was having a particularly lousy attitude day. You know those days when you know you have a bad attitude, but you're fine with it. Let the world cope. And it was raining, and we got there, and I sat down, and I was pouting, and I was sulking. I think I had been really nasty to, Mommy, I love you. I think I'd been really bad to her. And we sat there, and she's not talking to me, and I'm not talking to her. And I know she's praying, and I'm like, yeah, you just pray to your God. Me, I'm done. And the guy sitting next to me, fine-looking young man, I'm like, he doesn't even know what I'm going through. Look at him just sitting there. And all these nasty negative thoughts, this is how the enemy will come and attack you. And I spoke about him to myself in my head for like 20 minutes. And then the nurse came out and called his name. And he stood up, and I was like, I should be going first. Nobody understands my pain. And when he started to walk away with his crutches, I realized he didn't have one leg. He had only one leg, but from right above the knee, it had been amputated. And I remember saying, he has such beautiful shoes, and he can only use one. Remember my story, my shoe was still in my bag, but I had a hope that one day I would wear it, and he didn't. And he was so pleasant, and it taught me that regardless of your situation, let God deal with the demons and fight the battles. You rest in Him. Because you don't know what the person sitting next to you has gone through. You don't know their story, you don't know their situation. So now, let's go back to our story and our situation here. So the next person we're going to speak about is Rahab, the prostitute. Again, one of my favorites. Joshua 2, 1 to 21. I don't know if they can put it up on the screen for me. So now Joshua the son of Nun sent out 2 men from Acacia Grove. Now, remember I said that Joshua had been mentored by Moses. You learn in different ways as human beings. We learn by imitation, and that's how children learn. We learn by observation. We learn by the worst example you could ever have, so you learn what not to do. So Joshua, in his day, 12 men had been sent out. 10 came back with a bad attitude and a negative report, and only 2 came back knowing that they could conquer the land. So in his time, fast forward 40 years, Joshua sent out 2 spies. Not 12. Not 10, not 6. Because he trusted the word of 2. And he knew that the worst possible outcome would be, one says yes, one says no. But I'm pretty sure he had also prayed about it, and he knew that God was going to lead them. So he sends out 2 spies, to spy secretly, saying, go view the land, especially Jericho. So they went and came to the house of a harlot named Rahab and lodged there. It strikes me as very awkward that they went out, and the one place they landed, or the one place that it is noted they stayed, was in a prostitute's house. Maybe it's because as society and communities, we're not very quick to welcome outsiders. And unfortunately, I find women, we are the worst. Let a new chick be hired in your department. You'll be like, I wonder who she slept with to get here. You don't know her story. And how many of us have been spoken about in a negative manner? Or somebody new comes to church and she wants to serve, and you're like, imagine I know her story. She shouldn't be allowed to serve. I wish somebody knew her story. And those of us who are brazen enough, go ahead and start to spread her story. It's not your business. If God needed it to be your business, it would be. And until he makes it your business, women, shut up. Stop talking about each other. Stop pulling each other down and cutting each other down. Stop telling somebody else's story when God already forgave her. Who died and made you God? Unfortunately, as women, we are our own worst enemy. We destroy one another. And you can see it in teenage girls, and you can see it in a 7-year-old girl, that she would rather hang out with boys because chicks are too much drama. She's 7. What does she know? She's supposed to be taught love and tolerance, but we don't teach that. So let's continue. So they land in Rahab's house. So they went and came to the house of a harlot named Rahab and lodged there. And it was told the king of Jericho, saying, behold, men have come here tonight from the children of Israel to search out the country. So the king of Jericho sent to Rahab, saying, bring out the men who have come to you, who have entered your house, for they have come to search out all the country. So again, she was labeled and judged. Okay? But let me say this. If today we were told that there's an Al-Shabaab threat, I have no proof, but just bear me witness. Do you think President Uhuru Kenyatta would say, there's a Langa on K Street who will have this information, so please go and bring her to me? It tells you that she was a high-priced prostitute. She had the ear of the king, she had the ear of the general, she had the ear of the politician, the banker, the trader, the farmer, anybody who was a who's who. She had already been assigned a role of leadership. She had already been assigned a role as an advisor to kings. But all that they said was that she was a harlot. But God had a different story for her. So let's continue. She became the deliverer of Israel when she chose the God of the Israelites. She lived among them all the days of her life because of what she had done for them. Her name went down in the lineage of Christ. She is noted as one of the 4 women in the lineage of Christ. And her son Boaz was a man of wealth and honor and integrity. That's Ruth chapter 2 verse 1. So regardless of what they have said about your past, your legacy has a different name. Your legacy will tell a different story, and you have the authority to speak into your lineage. There's something I started doing many years ago. I started praying for my husband, and then I took it a step further and I started praying for my children. I pray for my children. I know, and my mother has been asking me for years to tell her, and I still won't because I've not been released to do so. But I know the gender of my firstborn, and I know the name because God told me that a long time ago. So the promises that he has given you confirmation. Stand on that word and cling to it. Don't worry about what they say. Don't worry about how it looks. Stand on that word and cling to it. I'll tell you the next step that I can't even believe I'm saying this. So in 2012, I'm still on crutches and I'm feeling all boo-hoo, woe is me, the world hates me, boo, 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 boo. And a friend of mine comes to visit me, and she says, God told me to do something, and I didn't know how you'd take it, so I didn't do it. So I asked her, what is it that he told you to do? And she says, he told me to bring you a wedding dress to try on. Now, anyone who knows me, it's a dress. It's new. It's shiny. Bring it on. I mean, come on. Are you kidding me? A chance to try on a new shiny dress and look pretty? That's my thing. So she said, but I didn't do it, so maybe I can do it later. So I said, yeah, whenever. And she said, no, maybe we can do it on Saturday. This was on a Thursday. I said, okay, but how about you pick me and we go try on dresses, wedding dresses, just because. So she said, fine. So we go to try on wedding dresses, and I'm on 2 crutches. My leg is swollen, I'm in a cast, and I'm in one of those bad mood days. So I try on the first one, and it was so beautiful. And I looked at it, and I took a picture, and I knew it wasn't the one. You know, I used to wonder, how do people say, I just knew it was the one, whatever. So I was like, whatever, but I knew it wasn't the one. So I tried on the second one, and I tried on the third one, and by the 4th one, I was done. I was hot and sticky and sweaty, I was grouchy, I was hungry, I was in pain, and I just wanted to go. And the lady in the boutique said to me, she's somebody who knows our family, and she said, I know you keep insisting on white, but there's an ivory gown that you really must try on. Just try it. So I was like, yeah, fine, whatever. This wind is just talking. Let her just bring the dress so she can go away. So she brings the dress and I try it on and I look in the mirror and I knew it was the one. I knew. And that day I paid a deposit. And over the next 4 months I bought my dress, and my dress is seated in my mother's house. And we pray over it. And sometimes when I'm just feeling really, really lonely and it's cold and I'm just like, oh God, there's another wedding I have to go to alone. And then they'll be like, oh, Elder Bev has come, clear, that's a seat. I'm like, thank God I'm Elder Bev. Otherwise they'll be like, oh, it's that single mama. Just pull a chair. Because Kenyans do that. So when I'm feeling really, really down and out, I put it on and I dance in it. Because I do believe. I don't know what level of faith you have. But you know what God is saying? Raise your level of faith. Prove to him that you believe what he has said. Prove to him that you understand that you are his child, and what he said he will do, he shall do. Don't wait for the world to validate your dreams. Everyone has their dreams to validate. Everyone is fighting for a chance at the table. Everyone wants a piece of the pie. My dreams are valid because he said, not because you believe them, but because he said. So I have a wedding dress. Watch this space. Then there's another woman I want to speak about. The woman with the issue of blood. Mark 5:25-34. Now a certain woman had a flow of blood for 12 years and had suffered many things from many physicians. She had spent all that she had and was no better, but rather grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, if only I may touch his clothes, I shall be made well. Immediately, the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of the affliction. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that power had gone out of him, turned around in the crowd and said, who touched my clothes? But his disciples said to him, you see the multitude thronging around you, and you say, who touched me? Let me ask. Aki, those guys had zoead Jesus. They had seen him raise people from the dead. And then they're like, dude, what do you mean who touched you? There are many people around here. Do not forget when you are in the presence of greatness, your place. When you are serving, when you are given the opportunity to be around great men and women, don't forget your place. The story is told by our pastor, Reverend Julian. He says when the late Miles Monroe was here 2 years ago, he invited a certain man of God from the city to come and dine with them. And this guy just went on and on about his cars and about his this and who he's met. Dude, this is Miles Monroe. Learn to shut up, understand, and drink from the fountain. Don't try to show yourself. Don't try to put yourself ahead. Just sit and listen and learn. And when the time when the time has come, God will reveal you. Don't worry. He has a plan. He will unveil you in all your beauty, glory, and splendor, and the world will not even recognize who you are. Okay? So they've zoead him, and he looked around to see who had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction. So excessive bleeding, the medical term is to hemorrhage. And that word has its origin in Latin. And if you split it into two, the first part is hemo, or hema, meaning blood, and rage, meaning a breaking. So to hemorrhage, technically, if you translate it technically, it's the breaking of the blood. That's what God did for us. He took the blood, which was the word, which was his son, literally broke him. And that's why today there's power in the blood. So let's go to the next place. She's called the woman with the issue of blood. Take the word issue. When you look for the translation in the dictionary, it's a point in question or a matter that is in dispute as between contending parties in an action at law. Or a point, matter, or dispute, the decision of which the decision of which has special or public importance. or a point the decision of which determines a matter. And then blood is the vital principle or life. And bloodshed is gore, slaughter, or murder. So let's go back. The woman had an issue, which is a point of contention, of blood, which is life. And she was hemorrhaging, which means the blood was breaking. Guess what? Each and every one of us has an issue of blood today. I'll tell you my story. I started my period when I was 9 years old. I was so young, I didn't know what was happening. I thought I was dying. So my mom comes home one day and she's like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where's number 6? And I'd locked myself in the bathroom because I knew I was dying. We had not been taught what a period was. I used to see pads and I'm like, yeah, my sisters use those things. So I would sneak into the store, sorry mom, and open them and